During week 1 of this course, we focused on basic HTML concepts. This week, we will look further into some HTML concepts before jumping into XHTML concepts during week 3 next week. First, let's consider a review of concepts related to HTML. As discussed last week, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. HTML also consists of tags and values, as discussed last week. We went over the example last week about how each tag has an attribute. In the example provided, size is the attribute, and +1 is the value of that attribute. We also discussed the differences between static and dynamic websites. As a reminder, static websites never change unless you edit the code within your HTML file and re-upload it to the website, the web domain, where the updated version now takes the place of the old static web page. Dynamic websites can change based on an event or data embedded within the code. This is most commonly used with dates and times when you go to certain websites. For your first homework assignment, you were asked to provide simple code within HTML where you provide a list of bullets featuring your name, a major, your graduation, and a link to your favorite website. I provided an example of how my HTML code looked for this specific assignment within slide 3 of the PowerPoint you've been provided. I labeled our title, Assignment 1, within our metadata. You did not need to have these specific metadata pieces of information within your code. My first bullet is my name. Second bullet, I indicate that I'm not currently a student and therefore have no major. My third bullet, I indicated I graduated a long time ago. And the link to my favorite website is actually the link to my professional website, innovativeprof.com. You will notice that the unordered list is closed at the end of our statement of listed bullets. Again, as a reminder from last week, UL stands for unordered list, OL stands for ordered list when using tags within HTML. Again, as a reminder, your code is going to be different because you're current students, and your favorite website is obviously going to be different from mine. Your code also, as mentioned, will probably not have the metadata that I've indicated within my HTML code. We now jump into a new concept related to web design and web development, the client. Now, when you're actually creating a website for somebody, they are your client. You're creating something for them. However, in this instance, we're talking about when a client is served pages from a web server. When you go to Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, if you use a Kindle, I believe Silk is the web browser for that specific product. A web browser is considered a client, and client performs some processing of the output of the server. So think of it from this standpoint. If you have a cell phone, you have somebody's name stored within your cell phone, and you say, call Mary. Your cell phone then calls Mary because you already have Mary's phone number in your cell phone. That is essentially what the client does. It's retrieving the information from the server. So your cell phone is retrieving Mary's number from whether it be the cloud or the cell phone where you have the number saved into. Servers return HTML code along with other content such as images and small applications such as Flash videos, applets. Servers are often found on the web. Some people can connect to web servers using FTP which we will discuss later in this course. Servers are interpreted by the browser and displayed to the end user. So for example, if you go to ESPN.com, the entire website comes out via the server. Everything is stored on their server. The code that is provided to you in HTML populates a web page that you view that looks very nice. Application servers typically provide dynamic content while the website server is responsible for the delivery. What this means is generally the application server is providing you the information, the web server delivers it to you. I will provide an example of code source from an HTML page within the information provided for this week for you. So what are some common HTML tags? Last week we mentioned that HTML and close HTML begins and ends the entire HTML document. I also noted that the head, close head, defines information about the document and also features meta information that helps the specific Google search engines or web crawlers that find this information useful to them in order to determine where your website or web page may rank within Google or be visible when you Google search. Body and close body defines the document's body, and generally most of the information you create in an HTML file or web page will be within that section. Open P, close P is used to define a paragraph. This is where most of your text that you write within a specific HTML file or web page is going to be written. Also, as a review, as we discussed last week, UL, close UL, defines an unordered list, and OL, close OL, defines an ordered list. You will notice repetitively that all of the closed tags have a slash and then the open of the tag as previously listed. Again, as a reminder from the previous week, the LI tag defines a list item. We also touched on the ahref being a hyperlink reference within any specific web page you may create. We also have the IMG SRC, which is the image source tag, which defines an image where it's specifically located. You may have this image sourced from a file within your own website. You may have it on your computer. So there are different image source possibilities for when you create a website. To make your website most effective, you should upload that image into your specific server so that it is available to be referenced right from the website itself, so that you're not referencing a specific item on your computer, because once the web page is up online, it will not be able to reference your computer, but it can reference any picture you have posted within the web server. This week's assignment, you're asked to build a table within HTML, so you need to know some specific tags for building your table. The most obvious tag is the table tag, which defines a table. This basically tells everybody that you have created a table within the HTML code. Then, how do you define a table row? That is simple, with TR tag. TR, table row. Next, you have the TD tag, which defines a table column. You are required to have rows and columns within your table, even if it's one row and one column. Finally, we have the table header, the TH tag, which defines a table header. Within your assignment, you're asked to create both a header for the entire page, as well as table headers for each of the specific areas you're asked to create the table for. The table tag, as mentioned, defines an HTML table. It must consist of only one table element, because each table you create will be its own table within itself. You may have multiple tables within an HTML page, but you must have all of these specific requirements within each table and close out the table as reference. It can also have a table row, a table header, and a table column elements within inside of it. So let's break down each of those elements specifically. The table row tag, as previously mentioned, defines a row in an HTML table. It can contain one or more table headers or table column elements. Next, we have the table column tag. This also defines a standard data cell, as we'll reference momentarily, within an HTML table. These can either be header cells or they contain header information, as mentioned with the table header element or tag, or possibly data cells, where they just contain information, which you use the regular table column tag. The text within a table column tag are regular and left aligned by default. The table header elements or tags are bold and centered by default. These defaults can be overwritten within your HTML code as needed. Next and last, we have the table header tag. It defines a header cell in an HTML table. Again, you can have header cells that contain header information and data cells which can contain data. Again, the text in the table header tag are bold and centered by default, and the text in the table column elements are regular and left aligned by default. So what do we need in order to start building an HTML file with a table? First, we need to start with some basic code. We have our open HTML, and down at the bottom of this slide, we close out our HTML so that everything is within our HTML file. We also have our header tag and our close header tag. Here I have a random title of new page 1, as well as some common meta tags and information to tell everybody this is an HTML file. And we also have our open body and closed body tag. All of the information we need for our table will be posted within the body section. So we need a header for the overall HTML page. So we need to add our header within our code. We should place it between the closing of our head tag and the open of our body tag. You'll notice for this specific header, which I've highlighted for you in bold so you understand the section of H1 tag symbolizes your overall header. There are other tags for headers you can provide that are smaller. H2, H3, H4, and so on and so forth. You'll notice here that I added the align code and center. This centers the overall header of the web page or HTML file that you are creating. And in this specific instance, I listed your schedule as the specific header for the overall web page. You are welcome to provide your name as schedule instead of just simply your schedule. Next, how do we begin creating our table? Well, first, we need our table information. So I created an open table tag here where I put border as 0. You may change and play around with the border size to different sizes. This table border is the thickness of the table itself and how big it is. Width 100% plays to the size of the overall table and how much space it takes up. And then we close out our table tag. Next, we need to add information within the table. So we start with our TR tag, and down the bottom we close out our TR tag. And next we have to add information within our table. So first we create our table header, which for assignment 2, the first one is course name. This table assumes that you only have 4 courses. throughout the course of this semester. So I have set up 4 specific table columns for you to place course name within. You'll notice here there's ampersand and BSP semicolon within these specific data cells. When you go ahead and make your HTML code, you will click on those, drag along, and edit them to post the information about your course name. So for example, if your first course is this course, you would type in BITM 3730 Developing Web Applications as your first course name and go through for all of the course names you need to provide. There are 2 other pieces associated with this table that you will need to reference and create within your table, being instructor and number of credits. Again, we use the TR tag to open and close within the table itself, the TH table header tag, in this case for instructor, in the other case for number of credits, which will again create more columns for you to provide information for. And then for each, I've provided examples of 4 specific cells to put information within. And as mentioned previously in the previous slide, you will edit out the ampersand NBSP semicolon information. So in these cells, the instructor would be Professor Marino, the number of credits would be 3, and then each specific column will represent the other courses. You would have the second instructor would be whoever the instructor is for the second course you list. And I'm assuming in most cases your number of credits will all be 3 for these specific 3 credits within Seton Hall University. So here is a visual table of what I produced within my HTML code. I have my overall header as Professor Marino's schedule. I then have course name, instructor, and number of credits. You will notice that the 4 cells for each column associated with course name, instructor, number of credits. Once you replace the ampersand NBSP semicolon information within these data cells, you will notice that the table will begin to shrink. When you have the information in all of these cells, you will notice that all 5 within each column should be about the same size. So some notes on your visual table provided information within the previous slide. As mentioned, the sizes of the cells in each row will change when you replace the ampersand NBSP semicolon code with actual text. Now, what do you need to do if you are taking more than 4 classes? As previously referenced, you need to add another TD tag for the table column or data cell for each section. So you need to add a new one for course name, a new one for instructor, and a new one for number of credits until you have enough cells to cover all of your courses for the table you create in assignment 2. So if you need 6 specific courses that you're taking, you will have to add 2 more of the table data cells. If you only have 1 more, you only need to add 1 more. If you have 7 courses, you're a great young scholar, you're taking 7 classes, you would have to add 3 more. If you're only taking 3 courses, 2 courses, or 1 course, you would have less than the 4 specific table data cells, table column cells tags that you have previously been provided. These can be edited out of the previous slides that you might copy into your HTML document to create your assignment 2 HTML page.